can't hear.
Good enough.
When Rob walks out, everybody laughing. Cut. Still talking to the turtle off mic. And on. Get really excited. Make a lot of noise.
Oh man, if only the internet knew a few people were here. You guys are talented, very talented at inflating yourself. What are you? Donald Trump's assets? Okay. Yeah, that's the one. I tried like hell to write a joke about that this week, and I just went crazy and threw it all away. So that's my best effort. Thank you guys so fucking much for coming out to this. This is our season 2 finale of this show. Thank you very much. Absolutely, it's episode number 13, a nice lucky place to end it all, okay? So let's get right into it before this keeps sounding like a suicide note. Something about the vibe, you know? Let's get right into it, everybody. So this week, the man with the mushroom dick took on the incredible mushroom cloud. When Donald Trump proved to the medical world how long it takes to clear bone spurs by finally traveling to Vietnam 50 years after his medical deferment, right? It takes 50 years. We didn't know that. It landed better, Mike, than I thought it would. I ought to say it on the stream, I don't give a fuck. We went back and forth on that one. I was like, no, fucking make it work. Posing for a picture that is sure to be used to frighten naughty children. Trump and D-grade Elvis impersonator Kim Jong-un met extensively, but of course came away with no deal. It's no deal, guys. No deal. Howie, I like to keep playing. No deal. Fucking done. Trump upset many Americans when he took the word of the despotic leader that he had no knowledge in the killing of American prisoner Otto Warmbier. Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. And what seemed like a prelude of what's to come in the face of the Cohen testimony, Trump said, and he didn't know. You know, sometimes things can be happening right under a leader's nose, and they don't even know that things are going on, and everybody's talking, and maybe even their family's involved with evil stuff. It happens. Crazy thing. Believe me. Believe me. He's got some experience. Meanwhile, Trump's longtime fixer and human footstool, Michael Cohen, testified for 8 straight hours before Congress. It was no Benghazi, but it was a hell of a show. The hearing felt a little like church, led by presiding chairman and man named for the ejaculating prophet Elijah Cummings. Anna Kennedy got a joke on the show. Let's yes, amazing. Fantastic. It was bombshell after bombshell at this Cohen hearing. It was crazy. It was one thing right after the other about the president. But I have to say, it especially drove home the long-believed point that the New York accent is unbearably annoying. Is it not? Oh my God, that guy. He's like the human embodiment of a Queens used car salesman. I could not listen to this guy. And what is with the enunciation? He's very, I don't know if it was the mic or what it was, but everything was like Donald J. Trump. Like he was just beatboxing, you know? Very confused. He called Trump a con man, a cheat, a racist. Finally some clarification on those murky points. Clear that up. Congressman Mark Meadows countered Cohen's charge that Donald Trump is a racist at one point by quipping and quite cleverly, I don't think Michael Cohen knows what racism is. I don't even think Michael Cohen knows what racism looks like. And to demonstrate that, I'd like to bring this black woman on as a prop. She can stand silently behind this entire charade. Now that's racist. Volume 17. Finally, Trump gave his longest speech yet this week. It feels like he's been talking non-stop for like 4 years, but believe it or not, he set a new record at CPAC this week. For those of you who don't know, CPAC stands for the Conservative Political Action Conference and not Cool People Against Color. That's what I thought their thing was. He spoke for 2.5 hours, and it was a doozy. It was a lot. It was all over the place, as predicted. His base ate it up. It was everything that they want, you know. He rambled on incoherently. You know, he blamed everyone else for his problems. And he even did some classic Trump molestation on the way out, you know what I mean? Some patriotic regret, you know? Yeah, he's a fan. He's a patriot! All right, everybody. We have a fucking awesome show for you guys tonight. Shane Seibel, comedian Rob Banks are here. Let's hear it for him. Fantastic. We'll be right back after this.
Thank you. With someone, and our heads are almost the same.
Any chance that got recorded?
I did a podcast with a comic named it doesn't matter. I literally like the whole podcast. That's me going forward, like dumb and dumber style. Right? Every one of my pictures like that.
Like I'm always in the
Dude, I don't
know. Don't throw it to me. She knocks down the main camera. Thank you.
7.75.
You want one? You good with the bull? You gonna ride the bull?
Yeah. Brad.
Are we coming back on camera 3, Kyle? 2. Okay. Can't we be 3?
Solid 8.
Thank you.
Damn, you got a big head.
I know. I walked into Liz,
See, we can do some
or at
shit.
the time it was Hat World.
Yeah.
And this guy looked like he was stoned out of his mind. He was
A little
like,
sneak
young,
peek
like,
of behind the
kid.
fourth wall of
I was like,
Travis
you guys had
Library.
eights?
It's a
And he
wonderful
went,
podcast. Go check that shit out.
oh.
To everyone in the room who hasn't already done
But
it.
I met a guy who works at Flappers.
It's a fair amount of people.
His
Thanks, have you done it?
No.
You gotta have Rob Banks behind the fourth wall.
Yeah, because it's like I got a big head, you got a big head. So, man, you got a big head.
About to come back, folks.
Your poor mom.
Yeah.
How the fuck did that happen?
Oh my god, it's so big.
When
It's
you
so
see the fourth wall logo up there, let's get some big applause. Wonderful. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. Great. My first guest tonight, everybody, is a very talented, I'm saying filmmaker is what I'm calling you, but you do so many things, and we're going to get into that. But to me, the most interesting thing about this gentleman is that he was my best friend when I was like 8 years old. And now we live moments away from each other in a completely different state. My very good friend Shane Seibel, everybody. Let him hear it. Let him hear it. Normally we have comedians on this show, but if you've seen the show, you know you don't have to be funny. It's not part of the Yeah, no stress at all. So expanding a little bit on that point, and I'll just put it all out there why I invited you on the show in the first place. So you and I met, we were like 7 or 8, give or take, yeah. And we were living in Austin, Texas, and you know, from very different families, but a lot of conservative people in our families, both, yeah?
Definitely, yeah.
And you and I were best friends for like 2-3 years, probably?
Yeah.
And then we were 1 year apart, so like I went off to middle school, and then we kind of had different paths, and occasionally...
Too, right?
I think we went to the same middle school, but see? That's my point. Yeah, we have totally different groups of friends and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Fast forward, we kind of keep in touch over the years. Not really. Oh, you're in North Carolina, oh, you're in Boston. Oh, yeah.
That's how it is.
Yeah, and then I get out here, and I don't remember why we Facebook messaged.
It was
Do
something
you?
on Facebook, and I don't remember
Right.
either. I was hoping you would.
I can't remember what the impetus was, but
I think it was something political. I had
Maybe,
typed
yeah.
something, and you were like, oh, what? I mentioned Glendale, and you were
Yeah,
like,
you mentioned where you lived,
Right.
and I was like, do you live in fucking Glendale, California, for real? I live in Silver Lake, you know, LA at all. It's like 10 minutes away from each other
Yeah.
after over a decade of not seeing each other, which is fucking crazy. And then the crazier thing is we meet up and we hang out for a little bit, and we are exactly the same. Like, nothing's changed in all that time as far as, like, we get along, we didn't just go on totally weird paths, and it's like, oh shit, Shane's into that now.
Yeah.
Oh no, like, it wasn't like that at all. And I think that's what's interesting is you and I were born in a place where people don't really talk about politics. We were born into families who, at this point, a lot of them don't agree with where we stand on stuff.
Sure.
And yet here we are living in the same city, and after getting into it conversation-wise, I'm like, oh, we kind of agree on all the same stuff for the most part. Maybe not everything, but
Sure.
it's funny that we landed on the same political point with such different paths.
Yeah.
Do you think? What do you think made that happen? Do you think we just really got the right 2 years in? You know what I mean? Like we were like laid all the foundation when we were 8 to be democratic socialists later.
Maybe. I mean, it could have gone either way. I could have met you and been like, oh, fuck, Rob.
I was a little scared.
Yeah,
That's what I
for
mean.
Sure. For sure. It could have gone either way. I'm not sure why we chose the similar paths, but
I also feel like we're not so different than people with different political beliefs than ourselves.
Sure.
I think that we all kind of want very similar things, but we disagree on how to achieve those goals.
Like what?
We all want to live in a safe neighborhood. We all want to have a high-paying job. We all, most of us maybe want to have kids at some point. We want them to be safe. We all want a great economy and cheap healthcare.
Right.
There's so many things that we agree on as a people.
That's how I describe it to people when I talk about what the political climate's like in California. And I feel like when people say all the time, they're like, oh, well, you believe in all these things, why don't you go back to where you're from and try to convince those people that
America.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I mean specifically Texas.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
And believe me, I think all the time about like going back and spending like months just like going out to all those farm communities that my family lives next to and be like, listen, I think you should have health care.
Sure.
You know, like, and try to have those conversations. Do you do that when you go home?
Of course.
Do you try to have those tough conversations?
I have those conversations all the time. I'm constantly talking to my family and my parents, and if anything, not necessarily trying to persuade them, but just to hear their point of view.
Do you ever move them?
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes they move me as well. I learned so much from my conservative friends and family all the time.
What was the last thing you learned from a conservative person in your life? I'm going to put you on spot to that because that's a thing to say.
I don't know the last thing, but I certainly think about things differently. I try to always put their point of view whenever I'm thinking of something. So,
What do you, and I'll give an example of one that I had recently because I think that's a really easy thing. You know, it's an easy thing to say. Like, I learned from the people who are different than me. But, like, I was actually thinking the other day, I'm like, what are some conservative things that I either still hold on to from when I was younger or that when I talk to my more conservative friends, I'm like, oh, that's true. And I think one of the biggest things is guns. I would not
sure.
call myself super liberal on guns. I'm not like, round them all up, let's do Australia. That's not where I'm at.
yeah, that actually might be something that I've learned from talking with those people. There's so many good points on, we can't just go in and sweep in and take everyone's guns. Maybe that will solve some problems, but it will create a lot of other problems. I mean, we had the Second Amendment be the Second Amendment for a reason. It's very, very important, and we need to respect that.
Is it?
It is important.
Do you really think so?
I do think so.
Do you think of all the things that are enshrined in the Constitution? It's kind of like when you look at the Ten Commandments and you're like, how about no rape?
But
it's like a weird thing to be like, that is one of the hills we're ready to die on, is specifically firearms, not weapons.
Sure.
Guns, like arms, but that's what we're saying it is now.
But I mean, I think that we do need to protect ourselves. There's also a lot of people that live in areas of the country where there are bears outside.
Yeah.
They need a gun.
For sure.
But also,
did you grow up shooting guns?
A little bit, but I was always a little weirded out by them. I've had family members that have been murdered. So,
Word.
Yeah,
no, my brother was shot.
Is a very real thing.
Yeah, my brother got shot in the chest and lived.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's almost as impressive as the time he got pulled over for 16 pounds of marijuana in his vehicle, and my Mexican stepbrother didn't spend his life in jail in Texas.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah. The fact that he survived either one of those is remarkable.
16 pounds in Texas, huh?
Yeah.
Did that happen recently, or?
No, it's years ago.
Whoa,
I know.
Crazier.
Yeah, before the farm bill and stuff.
aware.
Totally different. That's a thing that you have a little bit of experience with is marijuana. Is that something you're comfortable talking to our audience about?
Yeah, sure, a little bit for sure. We're in California, it's fine.
We'd be smoking on this show if we were allowed to do it in here. This is not. This is the only time I drink.
Yeah, we're drinking.
That's my maybe my favorite thing I found out about you when I got out here. I was like, we have a lot in common, but I'm glad we have this in common.
For sure, yeah.
And one of the things that did not surprise me about you, so I'll just tell you something about this kid. When we were growing up, we would get in, you're a little kid, you get into new shit, right? You're like, we were into like Dragon Ball Z and like all sorts of different hobbies. But this was the kid, I don't know if you guys had a friend like him, where all of a sudden he comes over and he's like, hey, do you want to come play at my house? I'm into this new thing, whatever it is. And then you go over and it's like, you bought all of it. Like you have everything with that you could have. And it wasn't like you were like super loaded. It was just like when you got concentrated on something. You asked me once, and I hadn't seen you in a couple years, you're like, do you want to come to my house and play paintball? And in my head I was like, I've never played paintball before. That sounds kind of cool. And I was like your dad's house, like in the backyard at the suburbs? Like that sounds like what, target practice? What do you mean? He's like, no, my mom bought a new like property and we have woods and we have like all these extra guns for people to borrow and you can come over, we're gonna have like a paintball party. I was like, You're a lunatic. You're a full-on crazy person. Like, when you get into something, you go so hard. And then when I met up with you later, and you were like, hey, do you smoke weed? I was like, yeah, sure. And he was like, jars just start coming out, and he's like, this is mine. Amazing. And I have to say, the best stuff I've ever had, and that many other people have told me they've ever had.
That's good to hear.
So my question then around that is, like, is that part of... is part of moving to California getting ahead of the marijuana thing? Is that a business you want to be in?
It's a business I could be in, for sure.
That's how you got to think about shit.
Yeah.
Do you hear that? He was like, yeah, put it on the list of shit I could do. That's the same kid who bought the paintball guns.
I mean, I moved here more so for movies.
Right.
Obviously. I mean, I went to school, studied cinematography, I make films, so it made sense to either come to California or New York, and I'm from Texas, and
Right.
fuck the cold. I lived in Boston for 8 years. It was terrible. Never fucking do that ever again.
Yeah, the culture in between here and Austin is like, man, I wish someone had told us. I would have not wasted so much time on the East Coast.
Sure, yeah.
Like
the East Coast is great.
I enjoyed it. I almost,
Coast.
I ate my
Absolutely.
words as I was saying that because it's beautiful and I don't regret it and all, but I'm
This
done.
is more to what we're used to, though. The
Right.
weather, the people, you know.
Are you spoiled by that now? Like, could you think you can live anywhere else after this? That's how I feel. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to spend more.
Anywhere else? I don't know about anywhere else. There's a lot of not cool places I would want to live, but there's plenty of other places, plenty of beautiful places. This is a great city, though. There's
Right.
you can essentially do anything you want to do. They have it here. You can find any cuisine. You can, you know, you want to do virtual reality? There's 8 places. Steven Spielberg has a virtual reality place. You know,
Yeah.
So you know. You can do anything here, and that's what's great about a big city. I would have to probably live in a big city or right on the outskirts of it.
Is that like a forever thing, or do you think you're one of those like retire to the woods kind of guys? I think about that a lot.
No. I could.
I'd die out there,
could
but
do
I think
that.
about retiring out to the woods.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean? Not surviving. Like that's not. Let's be delusional about
Right,
that.
right.
But yeah, just going out there to die. So you were, and we'll talk about this a little bit on the panel. But you were a fan of Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
sure,
enjoyed his.
still am.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Are you supporting him in the new campaign? Is he your guy right now in this the new primary field?
I mean, he's great. I'm open. As always, I'm open to see what people have to say and what happens. I mean, but he seems like a really strong candidate. I mean, he has an immaculate voting record he has for the past 40 years. So it's probably not much is going to change than what I already know about.
Do you think did you swing any votes in Texas like that you knew as far as like Bernie in the primary or like Beto in the Senate race? Like, did you get anybody to give it a shot that wouldn't have?
I think
You seem like somebody would try.
For sure, I tried. I think I didn't have much success, but I think that a lot of those people are going to vote for Bernie this next time.
Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
It is remarkable how well Beto O'Rourke did in that state. I couldn't
Yeah.
believe it.
Purple.
Right?
It's
Fucking
going
from
purple.
there.
I want to see what happens in 2020. I mean,
Right.
maybe we flip it. Who knows? Maybe.
Oh, what is it? What's his name? Cornyn? John Cornyn, the senator, is
Yeah, John
up, right? Someone's running for his seat. I
Oh,
think.
are they really? Good. He
I could be
sucks.
wrong about that.
Yeah, I hate him.
We'll talk about that on the on the fucking panel. So I guess here's the last thing that I want to say before we bring on our wonderful, talented panelist, Rob Banks. Oh man, it's gonna be so good. But before we do that, I want to say that I think it's interesting that you've chosen to be so diverse in how you spend your time. You do more than one thing, and a lot of people who come out here are like dead set on doing one thing. I'm bad at guessing my future or planning it at all, and you are a planner.
Yeah,
You're
sure.
very good at planning. So what, for you as someone who I feel like is my brother in so many ways, like, what is the future for you in like American politics in the next like 10 years? Like, do you think basically I feel like it's a choice between these two things. You tell me if I'm wrong. It's either we just kind of get back on the rails and go back to moderate centrism, or this swing to the like actually providing services for people with all the money we have happens. What do you think the odds of that are?
I don't know.
I mean, obviously we have what we want, but I mean, what do you think is realistic?
I mean, in 2016, I thought we were going to be going more left. I thought that we were going to pick Bernie and everyone was going to be on board, and we were completely wrong about that. There's so many people out there that have different opinions on things.
Sure.
And we are in our little bubble.
Yeah.
And so everyone we talk to, it seems like the future is coming up. I'm not so sure. As much as I want it to, I'm not so sure that will happen. We will see.
The left swing, you mean?
Yeah, we very well could get another 4 years of Donald Trump.
Oh, for sure that could happen. Sure. Yeah. That's certainly a possibility.
So we will see. And even if they win the presidency, we have to win the House and we have to win the Senate.
To maintain the House, but
I mean, Obama didn't have either of those for most of his time, and they just obstructed, and they prevented him from going further left. So
absolutely.
So we will see. I mean, we need to encourage our base and fire up people to go out and vote. When people go and vote, Democrats win. Absolutely right.
Well, I'm glad that your bubble and my bubble traveled around, but then ended up right next to each other, and we can still, love what each other has to say. Shane Seibel, everybody, let him hear it. He's gonna stick around. We have a wonderful, wonderful panel coming up for you guys. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. All right.
We see dicks in the sky.
Oh, okay. I didn't see you over there. Sounds good, buddy.
Trail of dicks.
Yeah, slightly toward you with the other chair out.
Trail of dicks.
Pull it on up, Banks.
Freaking frogs gang.
Hey, we're making the plants healthier.
Good time for you.
That's our mantra.
Hold on. Do you believe in chemtrails and stuff like that? Huh? They say, okay, so it's such a conspiracy. Yeah. So I don't believe. I think it's fucking stupid. But they think.
By the way?
Do you see those clouds that airplanes make? People think that it's actually chemicals being released by the government to poison us, right?
People don't realize how clouds are made.
Let's teach them how clouds are made.
Okay, let's just see how clouds are made. All right. It's going to be an educational.
Got it.
It's a conspiracy. Neil, you're on fire today.
How clouds are made and chemtrails.
Okay, good. This is exactly what I woke up to today. Let's get into
He woke up with those dreadlocks and was like, I'm going to make a fucking song about chemtrails and shit.
Yeah, the hair's looking fresher every day.
Yeah, dude, I like it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay, just because sake
All
of
right. Woo! Welcome back, everybody. Hell yes. My first panelist you probably recognized from the show about 2 minutes ago, and he's going to continue to chat with us. My second panelist, however, which I cannot wait to introduce, is the wonderful and talented host of the Banks Heist podcast. He's hilarious, he's wonderful, and the answer to, why don't you have more white guys named Rob on the show, Rob? Rob Banks, everybody. Let's hear it for him.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on, man. You had me on your podcast a while ago.
Yeah.
The clock's been ticking on me having you over here, and I've felt bad that we couldn't squeeze you into the last second, but here you are.
I know. I'm just happy to be on.
It's fucking
I've
awesome.
been a fan of the show since the start, so it's
so
exciting.
sweet. This guy. Love this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's kind of expand the conversation on what we were just talking about. We were starting to talk about 2020 a little bit. I want to talk about Andrew Yang in a minute, so I'm just going to throw that out now because I'm so excited to talk about this dude. But I would say just, let's talk about the first thing, okay? So this guy, Andrew Yang, is coming out with a bunch of policy ideas. If you don't know who he is, he's an entrepreneur, and he lives in Iowa right now because he's campaigning for president. And to me, he's the Bernie of this race. He's not the person that from the get-go you're like, oh man, he'll probably win. But the shit he's talking about has my attention severely. And the big number one thing he's running on is universal basic income. So his argument is the robots are coming for your jobs and everybody should have a cushion to land on something. So $1,000 a month, the freedom dividend, I think he's calling it, everybody, no matter what. Thoughts?
I mean,
we're comics,
you can't argue with that.
Right.
We don't have any money.
Sure.
You know? So it's, but it's a scary reality that automation is most likely going to happen, especially with the fact that they raise minimum wage out here alone.
Right.
You know, they're always like, if you walk to McDonald's, they already have this stuff, and it's almost easier to go with that than dealing with an employee there.
Oh, for sure.
You know, that's.
And it's interesting because the balance to that, and that Yang mentioned, which I love, is there are still so many jobs that are super valuable that are not, you don't need a college degree for, and AI taking over is not likely anytime soon. Like we're not gonna be able to hire robot plumbers anytime soon. It'll be a while, like before they can have the thoughts to figure out that problem solving and all that shit and get in there physically do it. Truck driving, however, which is his big thing, is gone in 10 years, which my uncle's done that my whole life, and he barely works now. And that's based on what his ethic, but also based on the regulation. I mean, and that's happened over time because it's becoming so expensive to do things that way.
And I mean, that would revolutionize the whole trucking industry because there's so many regulations on that alone.
Right.
You know, because those drivers can't drive for more than 12 hours a day, otherwise they get fined. So if you just cut that out and just have these trucks just flying down the road all the time,
that never stop,
you'd make so much money. It'd be ridiculous.
Absolutely, especially when they're battery powered. Yeah, it's insane. So are you a pro UBI then?
It sounds like a really awesome idea. He doesn't have a way to pay for it. Every time that he...
I feel like I heard him give an explanation.
Oh, he's given plenty of explanations.
But you're saying they don't hold water?
No, they don't. I mean, there are 3 ways that he wants to pay for it, right? So he wants to do a 10% VAT, right, value-added tax. So essentially everything we buy from now on will cost 10% more.
That's crazy.
Which is fine for most things, but when you think about purchasing a vehicle or something like that,
for sure.
You know,
does that apply to real estate, homes and shit too? That's nuts.
It might. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I mean, this is all kind of
Taxes,
still getting
maybe.
worked out.
Right.
Yeah. So there's that. There's also all of the money that we use to pay for food stamps, for assisted housing, assisted living, things like that. Those people will either have to decide if they want those benefits or the UBI benefits. So it will count. It will erase that essentially, right? So
that's not my understanding of it. That may be the case, but what I understand, and I could totally have misunderstood this, but my understanding is that if you are on a government program already, food stamps, WIC, whatever, and you're getting $700 a month, or unemployment, which I'm on right now, if you're getting that, you have that amount, and then whatever gap up to 1,000 that doesn't cover, that's what your UBI check is.
No, you choose one or the other. And
really?
And he says that it's one of the incentives is most people will choose the cash because you can spend it on anything.
Right, you don't have to go to like WIC and use the,
yeah. So, crack, yeah.
Yeah, right.
So he says he gives a bunch of different estimates, but for that he says we'll save $600 billion. Okay, from the value-added tax we'll save $800 billion. Okay, then he says that we will have extreme economic growth. And from that, we'll get, potentially another $600 billion. So when we add all that up, right, that's around $2 trillion, right? So let's think about this. So everyone from the age of 18 to 64 is going to get UBI, right? So that's about 250 million Americans, right? So that's $1,000 a month. That's 250 billion a month.
Yeah.
So times 12, that is $3 trillion a year. So he's already, if you go to his website and see how he wants to pay for it, he's already short. Now, another thing is he says we're going to have extreme economic growth, and what's going to happen is...
He's calling it the trickle-up economy.
Right, which sounds very much like trickle-down economics. It's like we're going to have 10% GDP growth every single year from here on out, and that's the way we'll pay for it. And since we've been measuring
There's no way you can rely on that,
Since we've been measuring GDP, there have only been 3 years during World War II when we surpassed 10% GDP growth. And he says we're going to do 10% every year from now on. I just don't buy that.
Well, how would that affect Social Security, too?
Well, Social Security is...
I think it functions differently,
No, you'd still get your Social Security, and they kick in around age 64.
Yeah.
So that's why UBI is from only...
It goes up until Social Security, right?
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
So we're essentially, it'll last the whole time, but... Yeah.
Do you guys even think that by the time we get universal basic income, Social Security will exist?
I mean, it has to be it definitely has to be changed in the way it's structured, or it'll be bankrupt in a few years. From everything I read about it.
Well, Social Security, I think, will be fine. I mean, most of the... Yeah, potentially. I mean, there's a bunch of issues with Social Security. Like, most of our debt is we have $22 trillion in debt. That's the American people own that debt. Most of it, minus $4 trillion, right? It's all been
plus the 44 I owe for school.
Oh yeah. Dude,
yeah. So I'm just saying, you got to think of all of it when you think of what weighs on us as a people.
So.
So no, I owe 900 from community college theater school, guys. So
nice. Well, that just comes right back into your pocket, doesn't it, Travis?
Oh yeah, that degree really helped out.
So one other thing that I think so that's I feel the way the conservatives felt about Bernie, about Andrew Yang. I'm like, it sounds nice, like everything that he says, but I think the ideas are in the right place, which is so fucking important. Like, the thing that he talks about that I've never heard Bernie say, but I feel like he was beating around this bush in a weird way for a long time. Bernie sets up a lot of things by saying, like, in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, ... we shouldn't have this scenario. And I agree with most of it when he says it. But one of the things that Andrew Yang talks about, which is like, this country is the wealthiest country ever made because of us. Why are we not all more universally profiting off of this giant machine that we're a part of making happen? And that is so necessary and like what needs to be articulated to people right now. Is it's like, no, you don't get it. Like, I know you're poor, but you shouldn't be, because Jeff Bezos has $163 billion. That's crazy. The amount of things that dude could fix with a personal check is remarkable. So I love the idea that that's part of it. Let's talk about Joe Biden. We have not talked about him at all on this show almost whatsoever, mostly because he hasn't announced he's running for president yet. But it's been a while. Do you guys remember any other time in our history when there was someone who was polling well for fucking president and hadn't announced? I don't remember that being a thing. Like us being like, oh man, you know who should run is that John Kerry. And we keep like trying to get him to do it. Like, that's not how that went at all. So, but we have this one guy who's like 10% ahead of people in a lot of polls, and he's... How do you guys feel about Joe Biden? You're from Ohio. So that's a red state.
I would be supportive of Biden. I feel like he could go up. He could easily beat Trump.
You think he'd easily beat Trump?
Yeah, I think he'd be the best bet for the Democratic Party. Because right now there's Bernie, who's like the most popular.
Right.
But it's like, you look back at the 2016 election, he got screwed over from the Democratic Party. So it's like that weird rift.
But he got screwed over because of Hillary Clinton, who is now out of the picture. And
Yeah.
now he is the front runner.
It's true, but it's like, how do you think he's going to feel where he's like, you guys didn't choose me the first time, and now you guys are okay with me because she isn't running again?
I don't think he gives a shit.
Yeah,
I don't think he gives a shit about why he gets in office.
Yeah, I think he'll be fine. The reason why I don't really like, I like Joe Biden, I don't think he should be the Democratic candidate, is because he's part of the Obama administration. And so many people hate Obama and anything that stands for.
Is that about electability, or is that about policy?
Electability.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that the guy, we need to pick a candidate that can win.
Yeah.
We picked a bad candidate last time.
Agreed.
And we lost because of it.
Agreed.
And we got a worse candidate. And so we need to be listening to, we don't necessarily need to pander to the right, but we do need to listen to the independents. That's what's going to sway the election.
And motivate non-voters. Because let's not forget, as I say over and over on this show, 64 million people voted for Hillary Clinton, 62 million people voted for Donald Trump. 100 million eligible voters in America did not vote at all. That is the party where you're going to get people on your side. Because those fucking people, once they figure out that it's worth it for them to get involved, game on. Because that's the group of people.
Which is why I kind of think in some weird way Trump is maybe good. Because it is, we're seeing a revolution, especially in our generation, where people want to vote. And they want to run for office, and they want to be a part of the process, where we're seeing America in general be apathetic towards voting. Right. And maybe we need something bad to happen to reinvigorate that.
I think it's happened. Yeah, I think for sure. I think that was the 2018 midterms were America's response to that.
For sure.
A bunch of, like, the most popular, one of the most popular politicians in America was a fucking bartender, like, months ago. Months ago. Like, yeah, and now she's the youngest person in Congress and the most popular politician. Like, it's insane. And the idea that if you had told that to someone in 2016, just describe her. It's almost like telling someone in 2006 that Barack Hussein Obama is going to be president. You're like, wait, you're saying a socialist named Ocasio-Cortez is going to be the most popular. But it's true, and it's not about, it's about policy. And that's my favorite thing about where we're living right now, because Trump likes to make it about identity and personality, and it holds weight, and people vote based on it. I will not lie. But it turns out people vote when you start talking about policy and you really fucking mean it. And you're specific.
Not just, it's got to be good and it's got to be fresh. I think so many people are tired of hearing the same rhetoric from both sides.
Right.
And I applaud, especially Andrew Yang. I applaud, even if I don't think UBI, his plan is perfect. I
Right.
applaud him for having fresh ideas and pushing the narrative forward.
Bringing
We're
that to the
talking about
primary.
that. Right. Maybe he doesn't have the answer, but by talking about it, we will find the answer.
Absolutely. One of the things that they've been talking about a lot, because everyone who's like anti-left seems to have completely forgotten about the midterms. Every conversation about 2020 is like, you got to get yourself a Biden or a Klobuchar or a moderate, a centrist. Like these middle Americans are begging for someone to vote for. I don't know that that's really a thing. It may be a thing, but I don't think it's as widespread of a thing. I think it's the non-voters and the people who are totally out. I think these centrists that everyone's been fighting over for like 4 decades, I don't think there's that much of a sway. These like people who voted for Obama and then voted for Trump, the idea that we're trying to switch them back and forth. Okay, anyone who made those 2 votes is fucking nuts. I'll say it. I'm saying it on the show. You're fucking crazy if you voted for both. A guy, fucking Nick Jordan came on one of the mics and told me for the first time, and I had no idea, that he voted for Obama and then voted for Trump. Makes perfect sense for him. He's a fucking lunatic. So those people I don't know how to get through to, but the people who don't vote at all, going to them with the good policy, devoid of the party, devoid of the candidate, and just being like, hey, so you have trouble with those copays, right? Like the pharmacy bills are killing you, right? I think that's how we get people. And it's like at the last second, we're like, I think Sanders is your guy. And then we just like, you know what I mean? Like, you got to convince them on the fucking policy. Right. And they get scared by like, you know, all the propaganda stuff they've heard, and they see a single shot of a person, they think they know who it is. I think it's selling things on policy.
Sure. And how we can help them.
Right.
With problems that matter, not just we're going to go do something that we don't really care about, but like, I've got a lot of student loan debt. What is your plan to fix that?
Right.
To help me,
right.
to alleviate that burden. And you're right, I mean, policy, yeah.
To be specific, that was the thing I remember growing up. That's the thing about when like Bernie came along, and I don't give a fuck if it's Bernie or if it's anyone else. I like Kamala Harris for the same reason. There is a very specific discussion about what they want to do, and for the longest time, I feel like I can go back as far as, maybe it's because I was a kid and I was dumb, but like Bill Clinton, George Bush, Al Gore, John Kerry, even Obama, actually maybe to the max, their whole thing was like murky. Every speech was about like, we want to put America right on the right track, and we want to fix things, and we want to make it better, and you're like, sure. What kind of speech is that? Like, what is that, you know, and I cried watching Barack Obama give speeches, but I still go back on some of them, and I'm like, he kind of didn't say anything for the last 20 minutes. It was just like, because I believe in our spirit, and you're like, me too, but like, what are we gonna do? And like, and that's the thing I loved about Bernie when he came out. Yeah, he came out and he said, you may not like me, I sound fucking crazy, but look, I just want to give everybody health care. Fuck me, I'm sorry. Like, I can get behind that. I can get behind a concrete idea, and that's why I like Andrew Yang, even if I don't know if any of them will work. Right. Trying to solve those problems is ambitious. I respect it.
By the way, guys, we have a major fact-checking issue. You reported Jeff Bezos' net worth of $137 billion, but after his divorce, he's only worth an empty warehouse filled with broken Amazon drugs.
Is that Snopes or?
They just they just bring him fleshlights. That's all it is. Oh my God, that's probably true. That's why we have Travis here, everybody. Let's see, what was the last thing? I wanted to talk about what, if you guys had an idea for okay, so you're from what we're calling a purple state now. We're from Texas, okay? There might be some movement there. We're specifically from a liberal part of it. You're from Ohio, one of the most notorious swing states there is. What do you think is the policy position to sell people on in 2020? If you could barrel it all down and you could take everything away and you're like, look, you're choosing between this and this. Like, what do you think is the Democratic policy that gets people to show up? Is it healthcare? What do you think it is?
I mean, for me, the one thing that I noticed with the candidates running for 2020 is bringing back the middle class. Like, I noticed the one woman I'm really a big fan of running for presidency is Elizabeth Warren.
Sure.
Because she just has, she's not too, I wouldn't say she's all the way liberal, but she's almost has a few conservative beliefs too, which I'm sort of more of a fan of too, because I feel like I'm in the independent category. But she's the one that stuck out to me the most. I just love the middle class and just.
Have you been paying attention to her for a long time, or is she someone who's popped up more recently for you?
Just in the last month or so, she popped out.
Oh, fuck
Awesome.
yeah.
That's
That's
good to hear.
fascinating to me because I watched Elizabeth Warren when she went on like The Daily Show in 2007 and had never done an interview before. She's like shaking. And it's crazy to see her running for president very well now. No, I'm a big fan of her. I didn't grow up with rich people, despite the story I told about my friend owning all the toys.
You made it sound like filthy rich.
I
was
did.
like, wait a second.
No, it's not the case. You did have more money than me, though. So my point is I've had a thing my whole life. My only like prejudice that I feel in my heart that I have to fight, and I'm like, you're being unfair, is with the wealthy, because I don't see a lot of people with money do the right things with it. Like, I love the fact that the only reason Jeff Bezos is the wealthiest man in the world is because fucking Bill Gates and Warren Buffett have given so much of their money away that they don't compete with him anymore. That's true. Like, they're still crazy up there, but if they had everything they've always given away, that dude would be fucking crying himself to sleep on an Amazon pillow. It's amazing to me to see how things have moved, and I think I don't buy the argument that like corporate centrism is like the way to go back to doing business, and I hear that a lot from people who are doubtful of all this. The number one thing I hear that drives me crazy is, Democrats have just swung so far to the left. And it's like, no, just to the left and away from the center that we've been in for like 30 years. Like that the Clintons were like, please give us some power. Like, I get it. You had to like just inch it away a little bit at a time. But can we like go back to being Democrats, helping the middle class? What do you think the thing is? What's the policy people are voting on in 2020?
Well, it's always like, the economy's stupid. Remember that?
Right,
saying from Clinton? But I think any way to help the middle class, just like Rob said. So one of the great policies that Elizabeth Warren is coming out with, right, is childcare. Childcare is so incredibly expensive, right? She wants to make sure that no one's paying more than 7% of their income. So we're essentially going to have this program where we tax the top 1% of the top 1%. 2 or 3% more, and it will essentially give the middle class free childcare. Now, why is that good? But why is that good? And why I think it's better than UBI is the average cost of childcare is $700 to $1,000 at least per child. So you're now making sure that half of the middle class gets $1,000 extra a month. And you're not doing it by putting a 10% VAT tax or thinking that the GDP, but you're getting money into the hands of the middle class, and that's going to do wonders for the economy. It's going to do wonders for the middle class, and they're going to vote for policies like that. It doesn't matter if she has super leftist views or centrist views. If she can make the middle class feel like they're being helped, she will win. That's why I think there's so many Republicans that I know, conservatives, that are going to vote for Bernie, is because they feel like he will help them become richer.
All the states that Trump narrowly squeaked out the win in, Bernie fucking crushed the primary. Ohio, Michigan, Minnesota, Pennsylvania.
And it won't matter that they call him a socialist, because they really won't care about that when they have more money.
Right. Yeah, absolutely makes sense. It's time for one of my absolute favorite things that happens on this show. It's time to read some of our YouTube comments with the wonderful and talented Miss Hannah Canetti. Everybody, let her hear it. Yeah! Let's fucking do it. Get it going, girl. What you got?
1 second. Wait, are you judging me?
You take your time.
Okay, thank you so much. Hi.
Hannah Canetti, everybody. Yeah, let her hear it.
Please.
So what did YouTube say about our show?
God, you have so many comments. They're
Sounds
just
right.
Rolling in.
Right. A lot of viewers.
Oh, 1 second. Matthew Calamari said, "It's always a plus when the credit Rob gives the guest is my friend."
He's got a lot going on.
Did that just happen?
Did you have a lot of credentials? You're friends with him.
Well, yeah.
I wanted to put it in a list of priority of things that I consider about him.
That's right.
Friend first.
Yeah, of course. Best friends, actually. For
Yeah.
a couple of years. I
For
had that
sure.
title.
Formative years.
All right, Spud McKenzie said, "Rob, Banks, and Shane look like they're part of a nurture versus nature study." Don't know what that means.
So
which one?
Spud McKenzie's never been to any school ever. All right, that's.
Oh, come on, you know Spuds McKenzie.
No.
Yeah, I did think so. Keep going.
He
I know.
fixes my cars. and stuff.
No, you're gonna be great. What do you got?
Donald K. Trump says,
Okay.
Shane
Lazy.
used apathetic and reinvigorate in the same sentence.
Wow, that's impressive.
Weak knows who's buying thesaurus. I think it meant to say weed. Okay, so
You should get a dictionary too. That's no trouble with it.
You have both books.
We know who's buying thesaurus. A thesaurus. Who the fuck wrote this? Dude, Donald J. Trump, get it together.
Dude,
All right,
Trump.
I grew up rich. I don't think that was.
Is that from you?
But now I'm Richard says it's unfortunate that the first serious Asian person to run for president is running on a platform that the robots are coming to destroy. I think I'm sort of dyslexic. I was like,
There's a new Trump policy that he's going to have Skynet replace the entire middle.
Yeah, exactly, right?
all right, this is the last comment.
Did you like that Skynet reference box?
Skynet reference.
Fantastic. Judgment Day is coming. Continue.
Okay, this is the last one.
All right.
Bo Bye Den says.
Got it. It's like a puzzle. No, keep going.
Monica Lewinsky really blew the Democrats' chances of holding the moral high ground.
I think that joke's a little late. It might be like 20 years or so.
20 years ago.
I'm not mad about it.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
I was dead. I mean, I was not a thing yet.
Right. Same. 6 to 1, depending on if you're in Virginia. All right. Hannah Canetti, everybody. Let her hear it. Oh, my goodness. All right. Do you guys have any plugs you want to throw out? Anything coming up you want people to know about before we take one more break?
March 22nd, I'll be at the Improv.
Fuck yeah.
Friday night.
March 22nd, Rob Banks at the Improv. Catch that shit. Check out his podcast. It's fantastic. Banks Heist. I'm going to be on it again really soon. I just decided. No, but I want to thank you guys so much for being here. Shane Seibel, Rob Banks. Let them fucking hear it, everybody. All right. We got one more ad break. We'll come back with more Robbing the People. We'll see you in a second. All right. Woo. These chairs over there. Thank you, guys. All right. Well, folks, that is sadly all we have time for. My thanks to my guests one more time. Round of applause for Shane Seibel and Rob Banks, everybody. Let him hear it. Fantastic. Well, this was the final show of Season 2 of Robbing the People. I want to say thank you to everyone who's made this show possible. Joe Menente, Travis Clyburn, Kyle DeLuca, my wonderful writing staff, Michael Regilio, Alex Kane, Hannah Canetti, and all of our wonderful contributors. Yeah, let's hear it for them. It's been a lot. It's been a lot. And not to mention our over 24 guests we've had on this show in this short time. Absolutely crazy. And everyone who's watched the show online. Of course, my final thank you to you guys. Anyone who came out to see this fucking show live means the world to me. So give yourself a round of applause really quick. One more. I'm not going to keep milking it out of you. We'll just, you know. Before we sign off for this season, I want to say a few things to cap this all off. This show was an experiment. All right, not like an experiment like when scientists try to prove a hypothesis. It's more like an experiment like when two drunk rednecks' final words are, "Is that enough gasoline?" So it's very similar. Just wanted to see what the fuck happened with a lot of volatile things. I've been passionate about politics for a long time. I grew up in a community that's been wholly convinced that their votes don't matter, and political engagement was a waste of valuable time because the rich had everything bought and paid for. Ironically, I would find out later that that's absolutely right. But it's only true. That's only right and true because those rich and powerful people have convinced us that we don't have the power to stop them, but we do. It's easy to keep the worker digging in the hole if you can convince him that the ladder out is invisible. Well, it isn't invisible, and as long as we keep voting and talking and getting involved, people like Donald Trump and other people who threaten our democracy won't be able to kick the ladder down into the hole and piss on us from above. And make no mistake, that's what they want to do. They want to pee on us. They do. Let's not let it happen. I started this show because whenever I get annoyingly passionate about politics in my personal life, people tell me I should run for office. What they really mean is, if you care so much, please go do something about it and shut up. Leave me alone. But that's my point, and that's why I talk about these things in the first place. You can't just send people off to solve your problems. That's what we did with Obama, and look how that turned around. I don't need to run for office. You need to fucking run for office. More importantly, I think my place in this whole situation is getting people to talk and laugh about important things. That is my job. That is my self-imposed responsibility. My enthusiasm and engagement should not qualify me for major office. It should be the bare minimum for anyone benefiting off of this great country. The wealthiest country in the history of the world. I don't want to tell you what to think. I just want you to think, to read, to give a shit. I know what you're thinking. Rush Limbaugh says that stuff too. That's fair. I just want you to read different things. I said in the first episode of this show that the time for being quiet is fucking done. I think we proved that over the course of these 13 episodes that we are, if anything, terrible at being quiet. Yeah, maybe we should have at more points than another. I don't know how or when the show will return, but I know that it will. I'm very excited to get back to it. And in the meantime, I expect all of you to keep this conversation going. Vote, donate to campaigns, contribute, chew out your conservative friends on Facebook. I don't give a shit how you do it. Just keep talking about this shit so we don't forget that it's going on. I have a very exciting new project coming very soon, so follow me on Instagram @RobMorrisYo to keep updated with that. I'll be at Flappers in Burbank on Thursday night if you want to come check that out. Good night, or more than likely, good morning.